These phone recordings are from August 1976. I'm going over the tapes now with Bill in June 2013. Greencastle, Pennsylvania is one of the many independent points Dave and I deliberately planned our trip to go through. It is a step of some sort, possibly a Stromberg XY. We'll find out in a minute. First thing I'm going to do is dial 0, and that goes to a system called TSD, which stands for Traffic Service Desk.
May I help you, please?
Yes, can you tell me what exchanges are local from 597?
762 and 375.
What else?
762 and 375.
That is all?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we know this is going to TSD because the automatic number identification from this coin phone is key pulse 53 plus 7 digits plus start, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 tones.
That whole sequence of A and I appears to be called NT500.
That's the protocol.
Yes.
And it differs from, the normal protocol that we see in most of the network is a single steering digit, usually the 0, followed by 7 digits, which with key pulse and start is 10 tones. In the normal protocol, the start tone can change if they want to differentiate between whether you're dialing 1 plus or 0 plus on the same trunk. But this one has 2 digits before the 7-digit number and always a normal start. And those 2 digits are enough to...
They can give a lot of information. They can send 100 pieces of information with it.
Yeah, more than you need. Coin dialing 0 is apparently 5-3.
The other difference in the protocol is that the TSD trunk winks at you when it wants A and I.
Oh, that's
thereby
right.
preserving the supervision all the way through.
In the Bell System protocol, when it wants A and I, after it gets the called number, it soups and remains souped for the rest of the call. In the NT500 protocol, the trunk flashes when it wants A and I. And that gives, as you said, that gives it the opportunity to pass supervision through accurately.
It was a much better protocol. I mean, really, the Bell System should have adopted it.
I know.
You can never trust the operator. It says on the dial card that what's local here is 375, 762, 749, and 631.
Nice little metallic microphone, nice microphonic in that relay.
Yes, and that's one giveaway that this is a Stromberg XY.
Ah.
You know what that reminds me of? A bike horn.
Yeah, a bike horn.
Now, not all Stromberg busies had that bike horn type resonance at the end of the tone, but that one sure did, and I'd be interested to know whether the actual device is ceasing to vibrate during the silent interval, or whether they have some kind of strange interrupter that causes the tone to... I don't think that sounds mechanical.
Yeah, because of the way it rolls off.
Yeah, it doesn't roll off like any sort of, interrupter with a capacitor across it, or I can't...
It rolls off with its own resonance.
Exactly. Now, see, the reorder does not sound like a bike horn. At the end of each of those tones, it's just a straight cutoff. Unlike the busy signal. And the other thing about that reorder is that it came on without having to slide over to the 11th terminal.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, this is a Stromberg XY-ism, is that when it's going to block a digit that is dialed initially, it does not slide over to the 11th terminal. The reorder is just there when the dial stops. And the reason they can do that is that as soon as it goes off normal, as soon as you hit the first pulse, it goes into reorder. So while your dial is spinning, the reorder is usually on the line. But if you have a second digit that needs to be blocked, then it slides over to the 11th terminal.
Even though it's the same selector, which is very cool.
As in this next call here.
Sounds like bell.
That's an intra-office call. We're hearing the local ring. It's a Stromberg type CDO ring, but it's very close to the Bell System CDO ring that you thought it was at first.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not, because the Stromberg ones are kind of goofier sounding than that usually.
Yes.
And the other thing you can hear is there are high-frequency ticks and squeaks that are associated with a long rural phone line.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
You know it's intra because the frequency response of that.
Yes, you can hear those frequent. Yeah, so true. Wire would roll it right off.
Yeah, it's way up. There's a lot of stuff above 4 kilohertz.
Yes.
And there's something about, when you string long wires out in the country, those noises are there for some reason.
Yeah.
That was the local supervision test in Greencastle. There were some holes in the sound during the dialing process. My tape recorder or the phone dial was malfunctioning. This had a delay before the ring with a long period of the tick-tock going on. Then there was a coded ring, long followed by short. But because of the holes in the sound, you couldn't hear that clearly. I will play the damaged recording again and turn up the volume. And if you listen carefully, you can tell that it is a long, short type ring. Perhaps under the white noise, you could hear that first ring continued, then broke, and then was followed by a short ring. So the supervision test we called does the tick-tock followed by the long, short coded ring before the supervision test begins. This would suggest that the tick-tock has to do with that coded ring, more so than the supervision test. But we really can't be sure. There aren't enough examples to make a firm determination on that. Yeah, the dial is now seriously malfunctioning, and hopefully we can get some clear local calls without it messing them up.
Yeah, rattle that dial. See if you can clean it.
That's the callback circuit, and you can tell.
Oh, the callback circuit, of course.
And the thing about the callback circuits in a Stromberg XY is that they don't let you hear the call progressing the way callback circuits in steps do. So you'll notice as I was dialing the whole 7-digit number, you weren't hearing any step noises.
very quiet.
And that's an XY-ism. You can't make calls through the callback circuit and talk to the
vacant level recordings.
Yeah, exactly. The next few calls are to 375, which is listed as Marion, Pennsylvania. I find a 105 type test line on one of the levels of this office, which is very unusual. These test lines are usually found on lines, not levels. The other thing that I find in the office is a vacant level recording and a pager system, but I didn't run into regular subscribers. It's possible that at this time there were no regular subscribers in that code. That would explain why there's a test line on a level instead of a phone line. It could be this code is just used to distribute calls to the pager system and perhaps something else. In any case, the trunks to this office, they are a quiet type of carrier.
Another?
Oh, I can't talk to it. You could hear me trying to make a tone into
yes, that's a good point, yeah.
it. But I would have had to pay to talk to it.
Love all that dial tone on the line relay.
I'm sorry. The number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and call your operator. This is a recording, 375. I'm sorry. The number you have reached...
Such an independent type.
Yes, very.
'70s, '80s pagers, and they always had that funny hum, that power supply hum that only pager systems had.
Yes, for sure, and now it's reordering, and it's a good thing it was a post-pay is all I can say. It goes off hook on the ring.
Never knew whether I really wanted to like those or not.
Yeah, they go off hook on ring. That automatically makes me not like them. That was a protocol violation in my view.
Yeah, but they had to, because otherwise you'd be able to signal the guy.
Yeah, because as soon as you heard that, yeah, that's a grace eater. That's what that is.
Yes. It's
okay, we're on board now.
Yeah, that eats up the supervision grace of up to 2 seconds. Make sure you pay for it before the guy gets signaled.
Yes.
Literally, it is for that purpose.
Yeah, sure enough.
I'm sorry. The number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and call your operator. This is a recording, 375.
I'm having trouble finding a normal number in 375.
That would appear, yes. Oh, yum! You found some carrier. Oh, and you didn't dance with it.
I was dialing a number of digits that were absorbed in this office. Then I dialed a digit that goes over to Waynesboro. I probably dialed a 4 or a 6. Those are the two levels that have trunks to Waynesboro, which contains the codes 762, that's the main one, 749, and 631. 631 doesn't even show up on a list of office codes in the 717 area of Pennsylvania. So thinking it might be a Maryland point, I looked up 301631, and the name listed in Maryland for 631 is Waynesboro. But there is no Waynesboro, Maryland, to be found on Google Maps. So it appears there may have been a little segment of Maryland that was served by this independent phone company. Now, I always thought there was only one independent phone company in Maryland, but this little cross-boundary situation apparently didn't show up in that data. So there's a tiny little sliver, and it's so associated with Pennsylvania that it has the name of the Pennsylvania Exchange, not even a Maryland town. Now, there are two carrier types we kept getting. That's one of them, and it sounds very much like the Mystery Type 2 from Harrisonburg. There's another kind which is quieter and can be mistaken for a wire line, but if you listen, you can tell that it's actually a carrier system. We'll be hearing a lot of calls to Waynesboro in this recording.
There's some carrier for you. Shrinking again.
I'm sorry, the number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording 7621.
They had one for each level, and you hit the first level, right? 7621.
That would be a pretty monotonous process, wouldn't it? Getting all, I don't know, 10 recordings? Just kidding. You know, I haven't quite figured out what this phone company's deal is with that. It might be that 7621 is vacant number, 7622 is vacant code or something.
Yeah.
But
so
then,
true.
but then the one in Chambersburg says 2634, and the two codes there are 263 and 264. So,
Yes, there you go.
so I'm not sure what they have in mind.
I'm sorry, the number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording 7621.
Sounds like a weird independent carrier type there.
And by the way, we seem to have lost our dial tone on the line relay. What does that mean?
Ooh.
Earlier, we had dial tone on the line relay. Now we don't.
Oh, that's weird.
What does that say about adjacency of an off-hook phone or about an adjacent off-hook phone? What does that say about that?
You know, in post-pay steps, you will sometimes get the dial tone on the line relay associated with the class of service tone.
The operator, the class of service tone bleeds through.
But that's not the case here.
No, it's emphatically not the case. They don't need such things. They're more advanced.
Yeah, they've got the NT500 protocol, so there's no need for class of service tone.
They don't need to do any of that. They can do it right.
Yep. Well, you know, I went back and checked, and we did not switch phones. So I think the best explanation is that we were hearing another phone that was off the hook in the neighborhood, which has now been hung up. The code we've been calling is 762, This is the main Waynesboro, Pennsylvania exchange, and the trunks over to this office are all carrier. There are two basic types that we're getting from this phone. The one we got last time is very quiet. Almost sounds like a wire trunk, but it has kind of a crackliness. I've heard this in Independence before. The other kind is very much like the Mystery Type 2 that we were getting in Harrisonburg, Virginia. The next call will be to 749.
I'm sorry, the number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording 7491. I'm sorry, the number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording 7491. I'm sorry.
We got some nice carrier going on here.
I choinked, which reset the trunk. In just a second, I'll dial 9 again.
The number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you
On this last call to 749, we got a carrier trunk.
It sure seemed like carrier, but there seemed to be enough wire in there to choke a horse based on the pulse repeaters. It seemed to be what I would call composite.
Oh, let me listen again. There's something at the distant end.
Yeah, at the distant end, of course, and that's where our wire is. That would make sense because something at the distant end. It strikes me as a bit composite, making me wonder what intermediate office it's going through.
Oh, wait a minute. Intermediate office? There's a tandem involved, I think. Not just two trunks permanently stuck together. 7 absorbs. 4 cuts into another office. There, the trunk noise changed. 9 is going through to a second office. Now I'm dialing the last 4 digits. Bill, you've always been more attuned to the clicks than I am, and you're absolutely right. It is a composite, except it's actually a tandem call. Now I've dropped back to the first office again, the one we got on 7-4. And then when I dial 9, there, that time you can hear the trunk noise change.
the number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you
And that we know to be the 749 recording. There are 2 actual central offices in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. I'll call them Waynesboro 1 and Waynesboro 2. Waynesboro 1 is the one we have direct trunks to. Its office code is 762. It rings like this, and when we dial 762, the 7 absorbs, 6 goes into the trunk, and the 2 cuts in, but we still remain within Waynesboro 1 when that happens. Waynesboro 2 is 749. It rings like this, and it is reached through Waynesboro 1. 7 absorbs here, 4 goes into Waynesboro 1, and then the 9 cuts into Waynesboro 2. The carrier trunks we've been hearing are between here and Waynesboro 1, and we're subject to getting them on either 749 or 762 or 631. And when we dial 631, the 6 there, we're already in Waynesboro, and this time we got one of those noisier carrier trucks.
I'm sorry, the number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording 7621.
That carrier is absolutely something non-standard.
Yeah.
And I got that by dialing 631. 6 goes over to the carrier, 3 absorbs, and 1 goes somewhere. I then dialed a vacant level and got the 762 recording. That strongly suggests that 631 is in the 762 building. The next few calls all begin with 1 and 0. Since we are in the Chambersburg long-distance sector, and Chambersburg is an NX1 Tandem with TSD, we can expect that whenever we dial 1 or 0, we're going to be interacting with the NX1 system in Chambersburg.
Me being me, this is the most interesting part of the tape.
Me too.
I guess we get to put new batteries in this machine.
Got to put new batteries in.
Good afternoon, this is Directory Assistance. Directory Assistance, may I help you?
Is that a direct trunk, or did the NX1 get involved?
I dialed 1, which went into a Chambersburg toll trunk on carrier this time.
Oh, right. And then 1 just gets you there.
And it responded with an NX1 sound, dumping me into directory assistance. So it's 1-1 going to directory assistance. Probably the initial 4 absorbs in this office.
It's not time out of 1, I think, is what we're after here. Yes.
I dialed 1 and let it time out, and we got that busy signal, recognizable as the older tone plant that you found almost exclusively on NX1s.
Bravo, 597-9920.
What?
597-9920?
Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hello.
Bye-bye.
Right.
How did you do that?
Well, I'm experienced in NX1 land. So
Only available 9 to 5 maybe, or maybe they staffed it longer.
So in NX1 land, very often number readback is done in that exact fashion, and I dialed 1 plus a 3-digit code, and as soon as he came back with my telephone number, I didn't miss a beat because I knew what that was.
We need to make a call to Stamford and get him to send you out something, I think, and relieve those poor guys.
Total failure.
Yep. Yes. We're talking about Cognitronics, makers of the 958 machine.
8659925.
Of course, on the other hand, if you're an experienced freak, you don't really need that because it told you the number before he did.
That's true.
I mean, as long as they're kind enough to let the tones through, I mean, isn't that good enough?
Actually, at that rate, I might have to listen to it a
I
few
know,
times.
I know. In all seriousness, yes. At that rate, it's a little tough. Yeah.
I can usually get it in like 3 or 4 plays.
Yeah. That's what we used to do. We used to just repeat it if we could.
Yep. Oh, and by the way, the crosstalk on that was so cool. All the
All the operator zip tones.
Yep.
That's what some people call them.
Bravo, 597-9920.
That's their ANI.
Whatever I dialed, it was something that the TSD flashed asking for my number and then gave me the busy tone. And
It wasn't serious. It didn't mean it.
yeah, no, it's an NX1 system. What can I say? You know, busy tone could mean, I'm sorry, your order for your sister's birthday cake has been delayed. I mean, it could mean anything.
It sure could.
But this time it actually meant this.
The digit 1 is not required for calls within your local calling area. Please consult your directory for further information.
What I dialed was 1 plus a 597 number. That's the exchange I'm calling from. It had to actually get my phone number to then know to reject the call, because there are some points in the Chambersburg long-distance sector that are long distance from here. So it had to wait till it had my number, and then it saw I was calling from a 597 to a 597, and it then rejected the call. So that's what the busy signal meant this time.
The number and dial again or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording. 2634. I'm sorry, we are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording. 2634. I'm sorry, we...
That was a vacant code dialed into the TSD trunk, and we just plain got the recording.
This next one does have a little, you'll see when it goes to dial tone, or maybe you just heard, that does have a little dial tone on it.
Sorry, we are unable to complete your call as dialed.
Narrated system. Hello?
Notice that 555 is non-ticketing.
I dialed 555 in a distant area code, and it went right through without an operator. Originally, NPA plus 555 and NPA plus 411 went right through without ticketing. And then sometime in the mid-70s, they started ticketing the 555s, but the 411 kept working for several years beyond that.
And the reason they didn't ticket them is important. In the very old days, directory assistance, when I say old days, is like before 72, directory assistance never went off hook. That is to say, when it answered, you would never get an indication at the near end that the call had answered. Now, TSD, for reasons only known to North Electric, about 3 minutes into the call, it would drop an unanswered call to busy signal.
If it was a certain amount of time with no answer?
With no answer, it would drop you to a busy. So they had to get around that. And the way they did in directory assistance, which would not ever answer, is they just bypassed the whole ticketing process and made it appear, for all intents and purposes, like a local call.
And local calls didn't have the 3-minute timeout. So to get around the 3-minute timeout that was associated with ticketing calls, they made it not ticket.
Which those of us that played with telephones very much appreciated.
Yes, very much so. Now, does that mean if somebody called the Larry King show?
Yes, they'd be treated to a busy.
Boy, that's the future coming too early, isn't it?
It certainly is, because I imagine the phone company hated that. the Larry King Show, and Larry King is still around, I think, he would encourage callers to his show to just call, and he'd answer them when they could and let the phone ring forever. Oh, man, the phone company must have hated that, because it was like a person-to-person call, but went at DDD rates, kind of.
That policy continued until AT&T stopped it, I think.
Oh, into the AT&T dropping. It was more than just the JRandom NX1 that would drop it.
Yeah, but it means that back in the heyday, like the late 70s, the NX1 callers couldn't do it.
Oh, here's something.
We're sorry, but because of a temporary equipment condition, your call did not go through. Will you please hang up and try again? This is a recording, 7172. We're sorry.
What did you do?
It tried to go through Harrisburg, obviously, that's 7172.
Yeah.
And it acts as if it just didn't hear the number. Let me see what I dialed. Hold on. Wait, I dialed. Okay, I dialed a 0. 212-555-1212. And for some reason,
It could have been a fluke, or it got confused. Funny start.
Funny
start at the far end?
Maybe.
But they didn't
That's
deal
not
with
very
funny
yeah,
start.
that's not
very NT500.
Exactly, it's not NT500.
Sounded funny when it cut through. It just did.
Yeah.
There's some funny T-carrier, those awful channel units that independents tended to use. You cut us through to Harrisburg, and eventually Harrisburg says, tick. Not long enough to time out, really, as far as I can tell. Not quite long enough to time out.
You know, that's true. It is coming on too soon.
But if you filled it, if you didn't send the start, would it time out still the entire length of time? Probably, though. I think I would have known if that was. It could just be that it should have gone through, but Harrisburg had a problem.
Yeah.
One moment, please. What number are you calling?
I'm calling 587-1111.
587-1111.
Yes.
What area code?
717.
Just a minute.
What? Oh, I'm sorry, operator. I'm going to have to call later.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
I dialed 0 plus 597-1111, my own office code, to see what would happen. And so
you dialed a local number on 0 plus, and it came up with no rate for some reason.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, heck. So you knew she had all the digits, so you went as close as you could. You said 587. We don't know if 587 was even a valid code, but you might.
Yeah.
But one way or the other, you told her something, and then you knew that nothing interesting could come of it, so you just got out of the call.
Exactly.
It's noisy.
I dialed 1 plus an area code plus a bunch of ones.
Oh, that's a good thing to see if they have any magic markers floating around, but apparently it didn't know what to do. It just, the Rego didn't have any clue. Or it was a Reg I, I suppose. Yes, it was a Reg I. It didn't know what to do.
And that is our last TSD call, one of the many carrier noises that we have in this area. What happened next was I discovered that if you dialed 6 to get over to Waynesboro, and then a 0 plus a 1, it went to repair service. That is unusual. It turns out that 0 in Waynesboro goes to a special selector that has telco things in it, such as 1 for repair service. And so the last thing I did was to check out all the 60X codes, 601, 602, and so on. So here goes, 601.
Telephone repair. This is the telephone repair service. May I help you?
By the way, we have switched phones. This is a different payphone. On this phone, the fact that it's a 3-slot phone is much more obvious. You can hear relays clicking and sort of ringing sounds, and we get this kind of a independent 3-slot phone sound on several stops in Pennsylvania Independence. Here's 602. That goes to a busy tone. If this were the Norfolk and Carolina Telephone Company, maybe you ought to hold on, because in that phone company, someone can answer the busy sound. 603 is next. We'll see what kind of carrier sound we get and what it does. And by the way, some of the crosstalk we hear from this phone is a CB radio operator in the vicinity. It's not coming from the trunks.
I'm sorry, the number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording 7621.
Here's 604. That one went to a blocked level. Ooh, a test line of some sort.
Oh, 05. That makes sense.
Yeah, it probably is the 105. Never mind the ignition noise from that car. I can't talk to it because I'm not paying a dime. That was on 5. It has the exact same tone, frequency, and duration as a 105 test line. That's probably what it is for measuring transmission. We just couldn't do much with it because we didn't want to pay for a phone call to be able to make noises at it. Here's 606.
I'm sorry, the number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording 7621.
We're getting a nice survey of different types of trunks to the 762 office.
For sure.
Some sound like carrier, some sound like wire, and then some sound like a really quiet carrier. But the ones that sound like wire, if you listen closely, they don't have any of the resonance that you would expect. So even they may be some sort of low efficiency use of open wires. Maybe even those things with the phantom circuit.
What's the kind of open wire where you can have two circuits and then the phantom circuit?
Oh, yeah. There were
all sorts of arrangements that could happen.
Yeah, Joe Stevens was telling me about that, and it was way more complex than that you and I would have thought.
Anaconda was a carrier provider of some description.
My familiarity with Anaconda was a subscriber line carrier that turned up at the commune 5 miles away from Sperryville.
And that was Bell all the way, interestingly enough.
Yes.
I guess which would you prefer, the carrier or the hum?
The carrier. It sounded like N1 carrier, but it was on coaxial. Oh, and it sounded good. And it didn't make the N1 carrier whine, but if you put a magnetic pickup device near the little box at the subscriber end.
Oh.
If it's 3700, you'd pick it up.
Very nice.
The only thing that was bad about it is that as you would dial, the sound after each digit that you would hear from the distant end would sort of like fade back in quickly.
Yes. I seem to remember you saying that.
So it did mess up those, and I did not record that. I really should have. We didn't get it until 1976. You know, when I lived there and I had my own phone line, I had to suffer with a 5-mile long wire line.
Here's 607.
Hello.
Now that was a really cool sounding carrier noise there.
Yeah.
Who
said hello?
Yeah, that was the test man. I'm sure that was a test board.
Not what you'd call something that rings often.
Yes.
Judging by what he said.
Yes, indeed.
Like the Seattle loop around on the ACD, when you could, not the loop around, but the test mode for the ACD in Seattle when I dialed 1 and got as my answer, what's the big idea?
Yeah, I think you also got, where did they answer, hey, this hasn't rung before.
Well, that's right, Buffalo. That was Buffalo. Yep, I did. And then there was the Albany InWatts test, where she said, I don't think she souped either. She said, I had to pull one of the little plugs out of here in order to plug my cord in. Because apparently for unused strips, they would plug them up to keep them clean.
Oh, that's funny.
Dude, that was great.
Was there like a period of a year where you had most InWatts tests going to operators, and then
an awful lot of them did. New Haven did not, but I would say most is about right. Yeah, most is right, and some didn't soup, like Portland and Springfield, and I thought that was significant because I was a little concerned. After having been bitten so hard on 555s, I wasn't sure what to let soup and what not.
I'm sorry, the number you have reached is not in service at this time.
Oh, yes, those.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording 7621.
That was the callback circuit.
In 762?
Right.
Oh, right, Dom.
I probably tried calling myself back at the 597 number I was calling from.
Could it serve? It would waste the hell out of a trunk, but could it serve?
In most cases, no. But then there were some exceptions where you could.
Not quite what they had in mind.
I think this next call does the same thing. I'm hanging up for a really long time, just in case. Oh, too bad it didn't call me all the way back in Greencastle.
I wonder if it sent it to limbo, though.
The callback circuit probably stayed busy for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Doing nothing.
Yeah, and then it figured out what it had to do.
Okay, I think we've got just one more.
Telephone repair. May I help you with the call? Hello?
She can hold me up.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah, okay, any reversing trunk can hold you up. She's not really, she's sick and tired of this stuff. There you go. End of tape, or whatever you call it.
Yep. And by the way, that payphone, that second payphone, was a 3-slot phone, and you can hear the relays making a sound that sounds like the quarter gong is...
Oh, my. Is a little close to it. Oh,
yeah. There are a few of those 3-slot phones coming up in this trip through Pennsylvania where that quarter gong sound is almost loud enough that you could maybe even fake out the operator by dialing a 1, you know.
Oh, I love it. You know what you with the you imagine the coin phones when they were a nickel, you didn't need that extra relay. I'm talking about Bell System coin phones here. You just didn't need that extra relay.
That's true.
And I learned, by the way, in the hospital in '68 that if I wanted a hook switch, I'd better spin the dial back so I could hook switch in peace. Because believe me, with that relay active, it got unwanted attention right quick.
Oh, so if you held the dial back on a 3-slot phone and hook switched,
it would clear the relay, so the relay wouldn't go da 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 da.
How about that?
Yeah, it was cool that way. And I wonder, there must have been a time when that relay didn't exist.
Yep.
Or, yeah, right, because it was pegged in the on position all the time, because you'd put in your nickel, ding, Louisiana, very late in the game, had nickel coin phones.
True. Oh, another piece of trivia, which I don't think people will remember, is that in the mid-'70s in Greenville, North Carolina, when they went to 20 cents, I was telling my girlfriend that they were not going to be able to charge 20 cents from the 3-slot coin phones.
Until they switched them out.
Now, they were switching them out, but I think she reported that they had managed to do it with the old 3-slots. So
you should have hung on to her,
How
she
so?
seemed to get it in a funny way.
Yeah.
She seemed to kind of get it.
It would be really great if I could have recorded the first time I explained calling the world through Williamsburg to her, because she totally got it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It just, she was cool.
Yeah.
Never met her, but she was cool.
Yeah.
And it was so nice of her to live in such a good place. Just that. You really, where you sort of went through them, right? You kind of said, no, not interested. Oh, she lives in Greenville. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, this has some possibilities.
Almost. Not quite. We almost think this way, but that would be taking it a little too far. Anyway, the next stop on the August 76 phone trip is Chambersburg, the NX1 that is the toll center. It has an unusual dial tone in 1976. Unfortunately, I did not get to go over those tapes with Bill, so it'll just be you and me. But Bill did get to go there in the early 80s, as he was saying. When he got there in the early 80s, the place had a normal dial tone. It had T-carrier trunks to Harrisburg that he could freak over anyway because of the NX1's non-ticketing access and the ability to drop onto a trunk by doing a flash during outpulsing. I demonstrate that on the Greenville NX1, I think the third program shows doing that, although not using a box, but flashing during outpulsing to drop onto the trunk with nothing sent. That was the technique Bill was alluding to earlier, and he could MF on T-carrier, which was kind of cool to not be prevented by the fact that there was no SF signaling. Anyway, Chambersburg local and TSD calls from a coin phone is next.